Okay, let's try that again. That was very brutal. This is why you don't get TELUS. So let's see if this works this time. So what I was saying before my stream got abruptly shut down by my internet service provider. I had a DVS equipped mixer, which, if you aren't familiar, that's digital vinyl. And my intention was to pay Serato the extra money that it would cost to use DVS. They wouldn't let me unless I bought the whole club kit. It just wouldn't work. So that was my issue with Serato. Was I went to buy it and I just couldn't anymore. Now they 12 a month. I don't think this should exist. This two-tier system here they have. $12 a month is what the full version of Serato should cost, and then I'd probably be less annoyed because this two-tier system, the first tier is it's not worth it anymore. They're dealing with competitors that are a way better value, and they're not acting like it. That's what I don't like about Serato. Now, Serato itself, the program, I've used it. It's great. It's not the end all be all it used to be. It used to be the most stable. It used to be one of the easiest to use. It used to be the least bloated. Uh, Not so much anymore. Like across the board, I think there's just better options out there. So I've gone the DJ Pro route. I'm pretty happy with it. Uh, it's got some quirks. Not every there's no perfect programs, but it was way less than this. So this is 12 USD a month. I paid about 350 USD a month for DJ Pro. That, although it doesn't have Serato Flip, that is one of the few things Serato I think does that nobody else has figured out yet, or has like an equivalent of. Virtual DJ might. I don't know. I don't know. Use it enough. It's on my to-do list, but Serato I think has fallen behind in terms of it's priced higher than its competitors, but offering less. That's a problem. It's still a good program. If you're using it, use it, right? Especially, especially if you bought yourself a Pioneer like DDJ 1000, is it the SRT? I believe it is. Yeah, use Serato with it. It comes with it, right? It's included in what you paid for, and it's going to work really well, right? That is something Serato does better than anyone else. And I will always give them credit for it, especially after using Traktor's equipment for a few months now. Guys, that's we're gonna get into that. But that's something that Serato does really well is the plug and play. If your if your machine you plug in your controller and it includes Serato DVS standard, it just starts working. You don't have to go and turn things on or off, blah blah blah. Same thing with Serato Flip. It's just you plug the thing in and the licensing is done for you. It's wonderful, and it's something that other companies do need to take account of. It's just I am not a big fan of how Serato has priced itself. I think they're pricing themselves out of the market if it was, or they would be if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of people do look at them as an industry standard. Now, if you are new to all this stuff and your controller comes with it, or if your controller comes with DJ Lite, use it. To me, this should be DJ Lite. This should be what is included on all of your Serato DJ equipped entry level units is just the Serato DJ Pro standard version, and then have the DJ suite included on all of the more expensive pieces of equipment. If it doesn't have DVS, then like don't include that obviously. But yeah, I just don't understand they've created this 3-tier system, with one of the tiers being one of my least favorite programs ever, one being good but limited, and one being what they actually should be including when you buy $1,000 plus piece of equipment. That's just my take on Serato. Somebody was asking me about it. They were surprised at how down I was talking about them. But it's not what the program is, it's how it's monetized. That's my hot take. I don't know. Yeah, if you like Serato, keep using Serato. If you have already bought it, great. But it's the monthly subscription I think is really not there. I mean, same thing, honestly. So Virtual DJ. Now these are in Canadian dollars here, so their monthly subscription is also not worth it. But it includes everything, right? It's a bit more expensive than Serato. Their buy it now is the reason it's not worth it, because this is normally $299, and if you are planning on purchasing DJ software that you never want to pay for again, Virtual DJ is what you should be buying. Just flat out, like it. They have, yeah, it's $299 and it includes everything. It's not this like $249, but then you've got to piecemeal stuff in as you want it, and it's not going to be worth it in the end. Virtual DJ is probably what I would have gone with if I didn't go with DJ Pro. But DJ Pro, the sale that I got it for, it was about $40 Canadian for a year. As I mentioned to somebody else, I got that plus Apple Music for less per month than if I went for Serato standard. Right? I just don't think the value is there. I think it's still a good program. I know it's having some issues right now, but I don't own a Mac, so it's not affecting me. But remember, don't update until your livelihood software tells you that you can. I do think that they're too slow on the draw sometimes for stability on new patches. But when it comes to audio stuff, that's just always been the case across everything. So somebody asked in my community comments or community tab on YouTube about my thoughts on Serato, and I was pretty harsh on it. Let me again just reiterate, Serato is a good program. I don't think it's a great program anymore. I think it was the best for a while, and they're living on that too much. I think it's a badly priced program compared to their competition. Between DJ Pro and Virtual DJ, Serato DJ Pro just needs to revamp. Like I said, my advice, get rid of Serato DJ Lite and include your standard Serato DJ Pro with said products, and then offer Serato DJ Pro as what you call your DJ suite at this point with this price tag. Like this $490 or $449 to get what other companies are selling for $299, not going to fly anymore. This $15 a month for what other products are offering for less than $5 a month, not going to fly anymore. That's why I'm not happy with Serato right now. Also, if you're going to have these things all as individual things, let us buy them as individual things, right? If I want DVS but I don't want Flip, that should be doable. But I tried and it just wouldn't let me buy it. So that's my thoughts on Serato. Somebody out there is annoyed. Somebody out there thinks I'm not giving it a good enough shot. Sorry. It's just I come from a few other worlds of software usage, and yeah, it's. I think I've come around a little bit on software as service. I used to hate it, but a monthly subscription has its place, especially when it's like $5 a month for like a software that I take it out and I make between like $500 and $2,000 depending on the gig, right? Like it's the pricing that DJ Pro is doing is incredibly competitive. And Virtual DJ, for what you get if you just purchase it outright, I think is also very competitive, but their monthly is terrible. Don't ever do that. Other than if you want to test it, I guess, like doing 1 month at that $20. What I think now, they do this a few times a year, where your first month is free, right? That's take advantage of that. Do the free trial with Virtual DJ for a month. Don't buy it for a month just to try it. Um, that's when I would do it. But and then Virtual LE, Virtual DJ LE is the worst program. Um, yeah, and then I do think I need to double check this, because technically I think I qualify for this discount, but I think it is for. I think that's a little bit tricky, of how they phrase that, because I'm pretty sure I have Virtual DJ LE included with one of my controllers. Because I bought a controller for $40 because I was like, hey, a $40 controller, sweet. Oh, okay, it's back. I'm just bouncing between incredibly low upload speeds and whatnot. Um, but yeah, so that's my take on it. I'm also pointing to things that you can't see. I just realized that. So what I was getting at is down here. So they've got this single controller for Home Plus. I don't like this. Not a fan. The idea of, oh, but it's for home use only. Don't buy this. Don't ever do this. Uh, yeah, not a fan. And Virtual DJ LE is the worst program. As much as I like to crap on Serato DJ Lite for being like purposefully stupid and limited, this is worse. Is the LE. But I think this discount code that they offer, I don't believe it work. I think it's for like the month to month. I don't think it is for the full purchase, which is a bit unfortunate because I would already own this already. If I could get it for half off, I'd already have it. But again, this is badly priced. What they should do, because I don't even know why, like just make Serato DJ Lite part of Serato DJ Pro. That's the other problem. That's the other thing I hate about Serato right now, is they need to make Serato DJ Lite part of the Serato DJ Pro program, so that you don't have to have two programs on your computer if you have a like I own a what's it called, DJ Starlight Control or whatever, DJ Control Starlight from Hercules. I love that little thing, and it hardware unlocks DJ Lite. But if I still owned my I think it was an SX3 Pioneer that gave me Serato DJ Pro, back then I would have had to have two copies of Serato on my computer, depending on which controller I had plugged in, instead of just having a stripped down version of Serato DJ Pro enable when I click in my controller. So if anybody from Serato DJ is watching, that honestly, you can re-solidify your place in the ecosystem by just simply making Serato DJ Lite part of Serato DJ Pro, making this terrible version of this program. It's not even terrible. That's an exaggeration. But making this stripped down version of it, Serato DJ Lite, and then having, when you upgrade, or if you use something that is Serato DJ Pro equipped, then you get all of the stuff. Yeah, you're going to get less nickel and diming on people, but I think people have given up on that. I mean, maybe your numbers say otherwise. Maybe a lot of people are buying into this stuff and I'm unaware of it. But I never would. So, speaking of buying into things, and programs, I guess. So as mentioned, I'm using Serato DJ, or no, sorry, not Serato, Algorithms DJ Pro. I hate that these all are called DJ Pro in one way or the other. Virtual DJ Pro, Serato DJ Pro, DJ Pro. But at the same time, what else are you going to call it? So I got myself a really good deal on one of these guys. Now, I got mine from Long McQuaid because I'm not a dealer. Normally, I just order stuff in from my dealers if I can. And this should be one of the best controllers I've ever owned. And it is in a lot of ways. But I'm a bit annoyed. So if anybody from Native Instruments watches this, know that know that I am disappointed in you, which is worse than being angry. From a DJing perspective, this is an awesome controller. It's 4 channels. Not that I ever really use 4 channels. Has a very intuitive section in the center for effects, where it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 in here. Let me enhance image. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then filter. I leave it on filter 99% of the time, so I don't need necessarily a fancier setup than that, where it's just on-offs. Now, for whatever reason, the on-off buttons don't work in DJ. It's just these are on at all times as soon as you start turning the effects knob. I can live with that, right? It's just somebody else's way of incorporating this stuff. I really like. Now, I was a bit perturbed originally when I got it because not even its fault, and I knew that this was a limitation, but only having 2 pad modes stock. I'm fairly certain if I hit this shift and hit the pad buttons, I can unlock the next layer under. I haven't really delved into it because the reason I haven't, it's actually set up really well. I was like, oh shoot, I only have 2 pad modes. Well, they're the 2 that I use the most, even though I don't use samples a whole lot. But hot cues I use all the time for looping back to things and stuff. Or like my wife and I do name that tune from time to time, and just being able to set up a cue point on the fly for like, okay, no, we're going to have to go back to the intro for people, but we also want to be able to play from where we paused it, etc. It's just really, really intuitive for that type of stuff. But then the loop, my previous controller, the looping was all done on the pads, and having the loops separated from it, right? Like, this is one of those things that Traktor has always done better than a lot of their competitors, is just looping and stuff. So that is set up really well. So why am I selling this thing? Well, from a DJing perspective, this is an amazing unit. It looks really good too. I'm very happy with how like the LEDs and stuff are, like, just from a visual standpoint and just the intuitiveness of them. But there's 2 problems that I have with it. Number 1 is it doesn't have an on-off switch, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but that I didn't know this until I got it. It can be bus powered, but it comes with, and at least mine eventually, it was missing when they shipped it. It was supposed to come with a power supply. I didn't realize it would work without it, but the LEDs are a lot dimmer, and I think the volume output's a little lower, which is kind of cool that it can be bus powered for a unit of this size and complexity. But when you plug the power supply in, if you want it to work with something like DJ Pro, you have to plug it in while you are holding the I want to say it's this one. It's either the Rev or the FLX. I can't remember. You hold down one of those while you plug it in, and it lights up green to show you it's in MIDI mode. But because it can be bus powered, you have to make sure before you plug in your device and stuff that you're like whatever you're plugging in first, you have to make sure that's held in. It just would be nice to have either a button for that. That'd be really handy. Or give me a power switch. I don't know why there's no power switch on something that has a like a power supply. So in like a a venue perspective, I would never recommend this because you'd have to unplug it every night, or else it's just going to run all night and day, and then yeah. So having an on-off switch would be really nice. But the other side of it, as I mentioned, MIDI mode, and this is why I have lost a bit of hope in this company. The MIDI mode on this turns off your ability to turn channel 4 into anything other than channel 4, or like channel D here. So normally, and one of the reasons I got this thing was it has a mic in and a line in, but if you're running it in MIDI mode, you cannot select those. They are blocked out. I don't know why. I've looked into it, and it seems like with Virtual DJ, you still have access to it. So they might not, Virtual DJ might not be running this in MIDI mode. I'd have to double check their manual for that. But the problem I have with this is why I'm more annoyed at Native Instruments than I am at myself. Because normally if I made that mistake, like you buy something and you find out that it can't do something, and you look into it, and it's like, oh no, you should have known that. In this case, it's not in the manual. The manual just says, yeah, here's how to switch it to MIDI mode. And there's a page that says, here's how to switch it to MIDI mode on their website. In nowhere have I seen that MIDI mode disables the line input and the microphone input. So that's annoyed me a bit. Now, thankfully, my setups, usually I have an audio mixer on the side, but and any wedding I'm doing, I probably would do it anyway. But part of the reason that I got this was so that I didn't have to, right? I could plug my microphone or microphones because mine has a like a multi-out thing that it sums the microphones into 1/4 inch. My wireless mics, at least, being able to have plug those in and having EQ and a independent volume and stuff on here, and not having to bring an external mixer, was one of the reasons that I jumped on one of these. Now I also jumped on it because I got mine for like a really good price. I'm pretty sure mine was they're asking on their Gear Hunter here for $450. Mine I think was like $350 or something like that Canadian. So I got a really good deal on it. So I may end up keeping it. It's just annoying that I still need a secondary mixer board with it, even though that's one of the reasons that I got it. So I might try to sell it. There's somebody selling a T7 from Hercules locally that I might jump on that if I can sell mine before they sell theirs. I offered them a trade, and then when I told them the limitations on it, they're like, no, I'll pass in the end too. So, because I am too honest. But yeah, so that's why mine's probably going up for sale. Outside of that, it's an amazing unit. And it just annoys me that, one, I'm pretty sure there's a firmware way of fixing that. And it would be an amazing unit for everyone. Because this, honestly, if they fix that, this would be a perfect controller for most wedding DJs. Right? 4 channels, aka 3 channels plus a microphone, is exactly what I want, because then I can have on channel C, I can queue up like first dance, but then I can be DJing on A and B for like cocktail hour or like grand entrance type stuff and things like that. Like I can have a song queued up ready to go on that 3rd channel while DJing normally on the other channels. Like that is what I want. And it's very intuitive. Like I don't know if it's DJ or what, but when I turn the fader of a channel all the way down or all the way up, it actually adjusts, like auto adjusts what's queued in the headphones and stuff, depending on what's playing and what's paused, etc. I'm sure there's settings I can adjust that to my own needs, but I just really like it. And like I said, the visual feedback of this unit is really, really nice, right? We've got RGB pads, we've got some nice LED backlighting kind of going on a few different places in it. Like, it just looks really nice. And the actual use of it is very, very nice. I really do like having the two rotary knobs for song selection versus one in the center. I don't know why, I just like that, but that's something I'm willing to give up if it means having a microphone in on my unit. So this might be getting sold, like I said, which is too bad. We'll see. If I can get more than I paid for it, I'll sell it. But if not, I may keep it and just... I have another unit that has an aux in and a mic in that will just go on gigs where I need that. But annoyingly, that one doesn't have EQ, which is why I'm actually looking into like a cheap, probably like one of those Behringer 7-band EQ guitar pedals. I might see if one of those does the trick for EQing my mic, and then I can use my other unit without any issues. So there's that. But yeah, so that's all of that. Now we're going to do a bit of a segmented thing here, because I may actually break that up into parts and post it on the channel, which is why I'm recording this right now. I do this every time and then I never do anything with it. But I put a presentation together talking about audio mistakes I've been seeing from fellow DJs. And the big thing I want to talk about when it comes to that, comb filtering. Now, this is an article from QSC. I'm going to link it in the chat right now because I can, because this is a live stream. Now, I like QSC's blogs. These are timeless. This one's from 2021. And this talks about comb filtering. Now, one of the big things with comb filtering, you need to know what it is. If you don't know what it is, it's really hard to fix. Essentially, and this article explains it better than I can, when you've got your sound waves going up and down, and they're from multiple sources, or being picked up, in the case of microphones, by multiple microphones from the same source, if the sound waves hit at different times, the ups and the downs start to fight each other, and you get this, where certain frequencies cancel each other out. They call it comb filtering because it starts to look like a comb. Now, they mention some really important stuff in here. The level must be within 10 dB of each other for this to happen. So that is half the volume. So keep that in mind. So if you have your speakers spaced far enough away from each other, you can avoid a lot of it. Like, the closer they are together, the greater the chance of this, because then they're going to be a lot closer where they overlap in terms of volume. But at the same time, when you have them further apart, where they do cross over, this is still going to happen. It's just, they're just going to be quieter there. Yeah. But yeah, this is what comb filtering is. And they get into it a little bit here of how to prevent interference and having your speakers kind of angled. Now, the other thing you can do is, if you have speakers that their sound, say they're distance from each other, rather than distance left and right, it's forward and backwards. You can time align them so that the sound coming out of one speaker doesn't start to interfere with the other one when it joins it. You see this often, like if a church has, speakers at the front and then a speaker like halfway down, right? Some venues have that as well, and they'll time align everything. But DJs aren't usually proper sound technicians, right? Now, I am not going to sit here and say that I am the best sound technician ever, but I like to think I know what I'm doing. Still have this bad cough, which is why I don't think I did one of these last week. I just couldn't. But this was what somebody posted. Now, I've censored up a few of these. Let me make myself vanish for a second here so people can see. So I removed the guy's name from this because I didn't want to just be that call outy. But this is bad. This is real dumb. Now those speakers, he's not aiming them away from the dance floor like that. I think he just copy pasted the image. So all of these are crisscrossing, and then I am covering up where the DJ booth would normally be. So let's move me here onto the dance floor. So what's happening is he's got sound coming from here, and he's got sound coming from here. Okay, mirrored. Now, where they meet is where you're going to get a crap ton of comb filtering, because, or where they kind of meet, because you're going to end up with different timings depending on whether this speaker here, as this sends out sound, it's going to be at a different timing than this one. And there's no way to time align these because you've got 4 speakers all essentially aiming into each other's beams, for lack of a better way of putting it. Yeah, this is just bad. This is just bad. Now, normally I would just write that off and say, okay, whatever. Bad sound is bad sound. I see it a lot. The problem is when you get into stuff like this, where this guy was defending this thing to the death kind of thing, and saying, like, I've been doing this stuff for 40 years and built nightclubs and, okay, cool, right? Kind of in some worlds, they would call that an appeal to authority, where it's like, you should trust my advice because I have this experience, which can be valid. This time it's not. Because as soon as they say this movement means they experience different sound waves at varying times, which can reduce the perception of comb filtering, no, it actually makes it worse. There's a really good video, because I'm streaming right now, I can't show it, but it's by, I think it's Insider, had Rat, I can't remember his first name, but he's a fairly famous sound technician. He's done a lot of big tours, and he demonstrates why why line arrays work the way they do and work so well, because of the way they shoot their beams of sound. I keep using beams, but you get the idea. Like, the way they shoot their sound out, the way they project it, it crosses over each other a lot less than if it was from left to right. And the only time you're going to really hear the phase cancellations is if you're like standing up and sitting down in going in between the 2 speakers, because of just the way that everything is aligning with itself. And he demonstrates it really well by essentially doing the opposite, where he puts a microphone in front and has a bunch of small speakers, and he moves them from left to right, and he moves them up and down, and it just really demonstrates this. So this is the problem with people like the person who did this post, is they're trying to make them sound like more of an expert than they are. Where, like, I could be wrong on this. I don't think I am. But they're trying to say, like, man, these people on social media are just jumping down my throat because you said something silly, man. Like, that's the problem. And no, brain tends to process the first arriving sound and may disregard subsequent signals that arrive shortly after. That is not also how it works. What happens is you end up hearing a phasing effect. If you've ever walked between 2 column arrays set up at a bad angle, which I've unfortunately had to do in some situations, there is going to be a spot in between where you can actually hear, depending on where you stand, because you'll hear the frequencies cut in and out depending on where you are. You can actually hear a filtering effect. Even if it's not comb filtering necessarily, you can hear this phase cancellation in between the 2 speakers. Even point source do these as well, but it's just worse with column arrays because of how wide they disperse their sound. They just cross over each other a lot. So this is just incorrect. Now there is some truth to it when it comes to, like, our ear, because our ear versus like when we hear ourselves, we tend to uh, our brain kind of pieces together a combination of the sound that is coming up our jawbone and the sound that we are projecting, and then pieces that together all into one sound, even though there is a mild delay on that, but it's short enough that it's not a big deal, like that kind of thing. It's the same thing, like your eyes technically have a blind spot directly in the center of your eye, but you can't see that because your brain doesn't allow you to uh, see it, right? Like, yeah. So why can't you guys just relax and realize that a dance floor is made to be fun and sound coming at you in all directions makes it more enhanced? It's not the way that works. Only when possible. And again, this isn't cut and dry. It is. Just an opinion out there. No, you're trying to make it sound like a fact. This isn't an opinion. That's the problem I have with this guy. Now, again, I made a point. If this guy wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to talk to him about this stuff. But I made a point of removing his names and logos and stuff because I don't want to put the guy on blast. I already kind of am. But I don't want to be like, look at this idiot on the internet, because I'm attacking, how to phrase it. I'm attacking what he's saying, not him as a person. This guy might be a wonderful dude who's actually really good to work with and has a decent sounding system, and he's just setting it up kind of poorly and just doesn't realize what he's doing here. The problem is he's trying to make it sound like he realizes what he's doing here. He threw an opinion out there. This isn't opinion. You're saying this movement means that they experience sound waves at varying times, which can reduce the perception of comb filtering. You're not saying in your experience it has done that. You're saying you've listed your experience, but then you're saying this as like a fact. This is a problem, right? And I'm seeing more and more stuff like this where people are positioning speakers to create more and more comb filtering issues. For example, and again, this guy actually did post on this that they removed, or not removed, they time aligned these speakers. Because at first I looked at this and thought, oh, this is going to sound horrendous. But they have time aligned these speakers, which will solve some of the problems here from the back and forth. The left to right comb filtering is still going to exist because you're going to have this stuff overlap. Now, the only reason that this isn't going to comb filter like crazy is because, to be perfectly honest, these back speakers almost don't matter. They kind of... Now, this one is a bit of an exception to the rule, I would say. The more I look at this, the more it almost starts to make sense. These back column speakers that they have put into place. Now, I'm covering one of their subs here, so let me just show you that there is a sub over there. There's a few problems here. For a space this large, you should put your subs together in the center. You are creating a power alley, and it is going to make certain areas of the room sound worse. But the guy's rationale was that the room is so big that he needed these extra speakers. When you double your sound source, the maximum you can get out of it normally, when it comes to speakers, is 3 dB. Now, I say normally, if you couple subwoofers, you can get an extra 3 dB out of it. And they're not doing that. They're actually probably creating more harm than good by having subs down here with essentially subwoofers, sorta. They're like full range-ish woofers on the floor. With these ones, these are going to create some problems that even your time aligning isn't going to necessarily assist with. And then again, you're going to get some major comb filtering on this plane because he's accounted for this plane. You've accounted for the delay from one speaker coming up, but now you haven't accounted for the fact that the signals are going to be crossing over each other, or the sound waves, and creating more comb filtering. Now, where I I can see some value in this is the fact that these front ones, here, are probably filling the majority of the room, and these might be basically working as almost a center fill for people who are right up at the front here. So that has some value, but it's just so much gear for what could have been done is take one speaker, set it in the front here on its side, uh, as like a, well, depending on the output of it, um, but one speaker here in the center as a center fill would have done the same job as these column arrays, because they're not keeping up. They're not going to be putting out enough volume. Now that's the other side of it. Because these aren't loud enough, they may actually. This is one of those ones I would actually have to hear this in person to know. This could possibly be fine. The more I look at this, the more I see that these are probably low enough volume. If you have these and treat them as center fills, you have them at least 10 dB quieter than your front speakers, you could probably get away with this if they're time aligned. So I take back a bit of what I've been getting at with this guy here. But the problem is that they're not alone. I saw this one, and this is not good. This guy. The chances of this being time aligned, incredibly low. No offense to whoever's using this, I just have a suspicion that if you're putting a point source behind, right? Because they're not doing this as a center fill. This one, like I said, as I stare at this more, I think they unintentionally have done something logical here that could have been a lot less gear, but it's not my back. But this is going to sound horrendous. Just everything about this is going to start. They're going to get interference between these. Yeah, just there's nothing good about anything I'm seeing here. So that's one of the reasons why I push back, and it makes me gun shy, because then I look at something like this and think, oh man, that must be terrible. I actually do think in the end this is a much better setup than my initial intuition. But that's the thing about when it comes to audio. I tell people all the time, your intuition isn't always right when it comes to audio, even if you do have a semblance of expertise like I do, right? The idea that this should work, from my experience, is it shouldn't. But the more I look at it and the more I just do the math in my head, the more I realize it's probably fine, but only because it's time aligned. Only because it's time aligned, and that guy did clarify that this was time aligned. So now I'm glad I didn't get into the comments on it as well, because a lot of people were lambasting this, probably apparently more than it deserves the more I look at this. This, though, horrendous. Horrendous. Do not do this, right? This guy, whether they realize it or not, seems to know what they're doing on these by time aligning this stuff, and it probably ends up sounding fine in the end. Partially because I don't know if it's skill or luck, but I'd rather be. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that those column arrays are quiet enough compared to those front speakers is probably what's saving this. This, you've put a louder speaker behind your column array. I really doubt it's time aligned. Just gonna put that out there. This is the problem. Like, people see this, and then they might see somebody like me say, actually, that's not the end of the world, and then they do something like this. So don't do this. Same thing with this guy here. Now, these don't have column arrays. The heights of the speakers don't matter all that much when it comes to this stuff. But as we saw in that QSC article, they're facing both of their speakers flat, facing, right? If they took the outer ones and just did that, this would work. So there is value to having those second speakers if the room is wide enough to call for it. Again, the subwoofers in this case, fine, right? I would get them on the same plane, although that's not as big of a deal, because you can, when coupled subwoofers are a whole thing. The other side of it too is I used to be 100% against having any of your subwoofers spaced whenever you don't have the chance to put them next to each other, right? Like this guy, I know it messes with the look. I know the symmetry is really nice, but a couple of those subwoofers in the center, when the room is this big, the cloverleaf of power alleys you're creating with them is not worth it. When you're dealing with a dance floor this size, you can get away with it. That said, remember, this is adding, this is sort of adding 6 decibels because they've doubled them, but they've coupled them. Oh. No, this would be... man, my math on this. I'd almost have to run it through. Like it's probably roughly 6 dB more, but I really doubt that you're pushing those subs high enough to make that 6 dB matter, right? I'd rather just crank my sub up a bit than carrying the second one. Those top speakers are currently adding nothing but comb filtering and 3 decibels of increased volume. It is not worth it. This room does not look wide enough to justify the extra speakers. And again, you'd want to tilt them so that they are interfering with each other less. There is a time and a place to have 4 speakers at the front, but this is just done poorly. Outside of that, it's a great looking setup and a good quality setup. I would even keep the subwoofers if you need the volume. I doubt you do. Yeah. And again, you're running an all black setup. If you wanted optimal sound quality, you would just take 2 of those subwoofers instead of the 4. You don't need all 4 for this room. I can almost guarantee it. Put them in front of your black facade. They'll semi-vanish into your facade and just have your speakers, 1 speaker on each side on stands. That's where you'll get your optimal. Speaking of unoptimal, this is another one of those. Now, in the defense of the person who posted this, now I got all these from a DJ setup group that I don't believe has any rules against this. One of the groups I'm in, the DJ Help Desk, actually has rules against this type of thing. So I don't pull any pictures from there without getting permission first. But again, if anybody's like, "Hey, I didn't want you to use that. You're poking fun at me," message me. We'll figure it out. But now this guy, I will give him 100% credit. He got a lot of criticism and he took it. So there's that. But now from a lighting perspective, this is way too low. But from a sound perspective, this is way too low. You have to remember, you always want your horns above the tallest person in the room. They, depending on, there's 3 types of horn shapes. There's probably more, but 3 that I've had experience with. There's the rounded, this sends sound in every direction evenly. Those are my preference, especially for floor monitors, but at least at the moment. Then there is the horns that they're even on the top and bottom, but they are sending it out at those angles. And then there's some I've seen that actually aim some of the sound downwards more, where if you actually look at the geometry, I think would be the right term, of the horn, the bottom half of it is done in a way that is projecting the sound downwards a little bit more. No idea on the case of these, because I can't see inside of them, but this is way too low across the board. Those horns are harsh. You do not want your ear directly in the path of that sound. You want it to have a chance to dissipate a bit, because they are longer throwing speakers. Now, one of the reasons that column arrays, and like I said, in this situation, actually, I've warmed up to this. Whoever put this out there, I apologize for ever doubting you, because this is actually looking more and more legitimate. Column arrays have a wider dispersion, often 180 degrees, so basically all the way in front of them. That means they will throw their sound out less. It's just one of the quirks of it. Think of it like a light bulb with no casing on it versus a flashlight that has, the domed, mirrored focus behind it that's helping aim all the light. Right? The more you aim that light, the more it focuses where you want it to go. and makes it brighter in that spot, right? The same amount, like the same brightness on a light bulb, if there's nothing aiming the light, it's just sending it out in all directions, versus if you're focusing it. It's kind of how you can think about sound. Sound and light, they're not perfectly analogous, but they are close enough that you can kind of use them as an example, at least in my opinion. So these column arrays, one of the things that works well for them in this situation is they're spreading that sound all across the face, which is also why they end up comb filtering a little bit more against each other, because it's a bit harder to aim the beams of sound. But for a situation like this, it's fine. When you get into something like this here, those horns, because they're focusing that sound in, they are throwing that sound out. That's why they're so good at filling a room. And why column arrays, one of the things that I like about them is they are quieter at the back of the room than the equivalent volume output of a point source speaker like these that have a traditional horn with compression driver. Hopefully, I really hope. Now, Community, they're one of those weird companies that they kind of make a whole bunch of stuff. I think they're still around, but they have enough of a variety of stuff. I don't know if they do piezo tweeters. I don't recommend anything with a piezo tweeter, generally speaking. I've heard some that are okay, but generally speaking, a good piezo tweeter is better than a bad compression driver, but a compression driver is almost always better than a piezo tweeter. So hopefully these have compression drivers in them. But then again, because that area that they're outputting is focused like that, if you raise them up, then the people who are close to those speakers are catching that sound a bit less directionally, a bit less just slammed right in their ear. So these need to go up. Also, yeah, you see how this and this here, these need to be on the same plane. Perfectly, not necessary, but this is real bad. I'll move myself slightly out of the way here. Can I? Oh no, I vanish if I go too far over. But you can see this tripod is like a good 1.5 to 2 feet. Possibly, well, not yet, but yeah, like a couple feet behind this other one. So that has to be adjusted. But like I said, one thing I will give this guy credit for is, unlike this guy, who said something real stupid, in my opinion, not even stupid, just putting opinion as fact when facts like there is some objective truth when it comes to audio in terms of how to optimize it. Yeah, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. This guy, thanks for the advice, guys. Yeah, I'll implemented some of what you said, because he wasn't done setting up when he took this photo. Mistake number one when it comes to the internet. But he took the criticism and just said, yeah, thanks for the advice, guys. Lovely, right? Now, from a lighting perspective, I don't go too much into lighting. One, this tripod probably needs to be out more, though I do like the look of, just in terms of its weight handling, it should probably be fine. But this thing needs to be higher. This needs to be higher. And same with this here. If I was this guy, I would get you can get a mount for projectors that could potentially sit on this bar. I do like this guy's idea, though. Basically, they didn't grab the photo. This is something I'll really give this guy credit for from a lighting perspective that I might steal down the road, because I've got a bunch of cheap projectors laying around that I don't use enough. He took this projector, aimed it at the back wall, and has this visualizer stuff going on the back wall. It looked awesome. However, it's way too low, because then people are going to be walking through that, and it's going to be leaving big shadows on the wall, interrupting some of it, as well as blinding people a bit, right? Always think about how much you're blinding people. So if you raise that thing up, you get one of those VESA mounts that will attach to the bottom of it. It's the same kind of style as what would click onto a roof, but it sits underneath it, and then it can be attached to a speaker stand, and then you just find yourself a cheap speaker stand and put that on it. That's what I would do. But yeah, this light rig he has over here, it's, well, one, the even though I don't care too much about cable management compared to some, this has some work that needs to be done there, and it needs to be much higher. You want, again, similar to how we want our beams of sound above the listener's ear, you need light beams to be above the viewer's eyes, or else you're going to be blinding them. But, like I said, he took the criticism, and I like that. Now, this, again, I had to censor the back TV because the guy had like his DJ name, blah, blah, blah on there. And something I do like that he got, he posted this video because, as you see on the text there, when the house lets you use a TV. And I actually do, again, like this idea. And it's one of the things that I'm hoping they change on the firmware of my current iPad. And it's one of the things that I might end up using my laptop from time to time for is right now I can't do video out on my iPad because it's just not a powerful enough one for it. Now that I know how much I like it, though, I might end up getting one of those iPad Airs or iPad Pros down the road instead of another laptop. We'll see. It all depends on if I can get SoundSwitch to work properly with it. I'm having some issues there that I'll get into in another video. But can you see the problem here? So number one, this speaker is too low. That's right. Again, the horn is right at the DJ's head, right? This needs to go up. And this is the problem. This is where aesthetics, I hate DJs for this. Guys. My guess is he didn't want to block the TV because it had his logo and visualizer on it. Isn't that cool? But you got to put that speaker up. That speaker's way too low. This woofer needs to be at your head height, not at your like gut height. Like no. And then this, unforgivable. Now, I was just talking about how you can use for a small room a center fill like that, but that's at a very low volume compared to your full bore speakers, right? Because again, you have that horn, and even if you have, like, I've done center fills where I put a speaker on its side, you have to be really careful not to make sure, because again, now you're putting your horn at head height. I have to pull the volume down on that, probably pull the treble down, etc., to make it actually sound good. Putting this thing on the floor is just kind of a worst of all worlds. So now you're not, thankfully, I guess, not blowing people's ears out with the horn at head level. You got that taken care of over here. This is just, in this room, yeah, this is if somebody walks by this thing, because that's the other thing. You have to remember, bass frequencies are omnidirectional. They can travel they travel in a way that it's just easier to get past things. So if a person walks in front of a subwoofer, not a problem. If a person walks in front of something that's putting out your high frequencies, those high frequencies hit them and then stop because people are squishy and they absorb that sound, those high frequencies. High frequencies also really bounce off of hard surface as well. That's why if you've ever been like in a city downtown and you hear sirens and you're like, okay, what the heck direction is that coming from? Because it's coming from every direction right now because it's bouncing off all the glass and stuff. But when somebody has their music too high in the house, you just hear the bass frequencies because it's the walls are stopping everything else, and they're reflecting in the room. But anyway, this is just bad because yeah, somebody walks in front of this and all those high frequencies stop. So this side of the room is going to hear your mids and highs, and this side of the room, it depends on how full your dance floor is, right? So be cautious. This was bait, but I'm gonna bite. I'll bite. I'll take the bait. Somebody was saying that, like, oh man, passive speakers are awful. Usually, like, or passive speakers are the best. and active speakers are for wussies or something like that. Like it was incredibly intended to just be bait. I have a strong suspicion whoever actually posted this didn't even take this photo, especially because I'm trying to figure out if these are actually passive speakers or not. Because like I know this PV line did have actives in it eventually, but there's actually nothing wrong with passive speakers. I've started using them again for certain situations. I've got an amp behind me on the floor that I am going to set up to run all my monitors. Because stage monitors, passive is just so nice because one cable versus two for every one of them. On top of that, uh, you can daisy chain them together if you don't need as many channels. So like if I wanted to do, say, 3 speakers across the front, or like 2 speakers on the front and like one at a wedge for the drummer, right? Then I only need like 2 outs from an amp and stuff like that. So they have their place, and especially for, again, DJing. I hate to break it to you, DJs, you don't need as advanced stuff as we sometimes do in the live sound world. That said, if you want plug and play sound quality, that's where you really want these like column arrays or powered speakers and stuff like that, where just you plug your cable in, you hit the on switch, you set your DSP to DJ, and yeah, sounds good, cool, right? That's what you get when you have that built-in amplifier. It also like I love active speakers now. It's just for that in particular. For live, I frequently use passive speakers, but for DJing, yeah, just having a set. I've just got a set of 12s that 9 times out of 10 they're all I need. And then I've recently got into some column arrays that, for what I am doing, are great. For small events, not too many people, like a 50-person wedding, they're great. I think they start to fall off a lot quicker, right? Like it goes so in with that one. Like this guy, like those side speakers are doing 95% of the work here, other than for like the very front row, just by the nature of it. But yeah, this is fine. At least he has them at the right height. The cable management on this is very strange, though. Like, you have, by the look of it, enough speaker wire to run these and have them go down under the table. Like, it must have been taken while they were setting up. And then this weird hanging power cord. That's why I'm fairly certain this was just bait. Plus, it was taken on a potato. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't want to rag on some of these guys too much. Like I said, there's a few of them that took criticism really well. And I'm not infallible. I have fouled. It's not the right word, but anyway. Like I'm sure I even said some incorrect stuff at some point during this entire thing. But I get annoyed when I see someone post something like this and then you defend it by saying it was just their opinion when they're trying to post stuff as fact. And just saying, like, trying to quote a bunch of factual stuff of like comb filtering and how our brains tend to work, but then saying that this is all an opinion and people seem to want to be really scientific about it. If you're trying to use the science to prove your point, but then you're saying you guys are being too scientific, right? Like, that rubs me the wrong way. Like I said, if this guy, if he wants to talk about it, we can, but it's just I don't like it because a lot of DJs, and I recorded a video ages ago. Let me know if you made it this far, if this is a video you'd like to see. I made a video about car audio and DJing because I've seen, and I've considered for like subwoofers, using like car audio subwoofers and stuff in like a DJ rig, and like how well would that work? Okay, is the actual answer. So I just never really pursued it because once you start doing the math, it's like, yeah, no, there's the way that the stuff is designed, it just doesn't line up. Um, but the reason I wanted to get into it was a lot of people come from like I came from live sound first. Like I was in bands. We had a hard time finding sound technicians, and like we wanted to do our own sound because some of like the local bars didn't have the best. So I started getting into that and like worked for some other people. I've done like sound for quite a few bands and events and corporate audio and blah blah blah, and just slowly but surely built to what I do now. Um, and then I also happen to do a bit of DJing on the side, right? I offer audio, and that happens to include DJing. Versus I'm a DJ who happens to do audio, right? Like that's the order of operations of how I got to where I am now. A lot of DJs, their first experiences with audio come from their car or come from their home theater, and that I think is part of the problem. If you have a surround sound system and that's what you're used to using, all of a sudden this makes a lot more sense because you're used to having speakers behind you and speakers in front of you, and doesn't it just make everything sound more immersive to have that sound surrounding you? Same thing in the movie theater. What they're missing is that those audio systems are carefully designed for which audio goes to which speaker to prevent exactly what we're talking about. That's why all channel stereo is like the worst setting you can have in a lot of listening situations because you're going to get some really weird stuff going on. And also why a good stereo, to like one speaker on each side, is going to sound better 99% of the time compared to a cheap surround sound where you've got, speakers the size of, a pen head that are supposed to be handling your high frequencies and stuff, and it's just or it'll be one singular like 3-inch driver that is handling the entire frequency spectrum. It's like not a good idea. But then you got car audio guys who, again, in your car, you're surrounded by your audio. There's usually a few speakers, like oftentimes you'll have speakers like kind of in your dash and door, and then you'll have your subs in the trunk, and then you'll have speakers in the doors for your passengers, and like the gain, the systems are designed for that space, and with the way the comb filtering works is like if you have a good speaker in front or beside you, and then there's another one that's far enough away that it doesn't interfere with it, it's fine. It works. And because bass is omnidirectional, having your subwoofers behind you is perfectly fine. But yeah, I think that's where some of the weird misconceptions around audio come for DJs, is that they're not used to doing audio in these larger systems and these larger setups. They come from a world of small form factor, where it's your living room, where it's your car. I think that's where these problems arise. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit, but like I've seen some very bad audio setups. I've seen a lot of misinformation, and that's the stuff that drives me bonkers, right? Like I said, like that's why this thing rubbed me the wrong way. But then this guy didn't, even though there's lots of problems here. Him saying, "Oh, thanks for the advice, guys. I'm gonna do that next time." That's what I like to see. So as we as you build up uh, your audio knowledge, like and subscribe to this page because or channel page, because I like to think that I can pass along some good wisdom here, both from trial and error and screwing stuff up and figuring it out, which is why I don't tend to be too harsh to newer DJs or sound techs, but also um, as a like you don't have to do trial and error. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. On one hand, yeah, there is stuff we can still figure out in audio, right? Like the line array systems that we've been using the last, what, like 15, 20 years are miles ahead of what we used like 50 to 60 years ago in terms of like I I'm pretty sure line arrays were technically around back then, but we still use, like, if you go and you look at the old footage of like Woodstock and stuff, they've got these massive stacks upon stacks of point sources that it would have worked, would not have sounded as good as like, and that's one of the reasons why I don't buy into a lot of the, oh man, things used to sound so much better. No, they did. No, they didn't. Like, would I have signed up to go to Woodstock compared to a modern concert? Probably. But do I expect Woodstock to have sounded better from an audio perspective than something done with a modern system? No. Um, but but yeah, it's just a case of I think a lot of, yeah, the misinformation is the part that really bugs me. Where somebody's like, no, this is how you should do it, and then somebody calls them out on it because like that's not how it should be done, and then uh, gets defensive and starts to talk down the science of it and say you don't have to be that scientific about it. You do. But again, if you're new to this stuff, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Right? It's just like I tell people when it comes to a lot of other stuff. Sometimes popular things are popular for a reason. When it comes to audio, a whole bunch of other people before us have tried so many different things. They've tried it all, and they have found just a few key things that tend to work the best in the most amount of situations, and we should just do those. And then you're going to be set. If you set yourself up for like, no, I'm going to do this crazy thing that nobody's thought of doing before, it's going to be that somebody's thought of it, somebody's tried it, and it wasn't as good as just doing it the old-fashioned way sometimes. Uh, yeah. But then again, like there are changes that happen, right? These column arrays got started in terms of the DJ world because somebody looked at them and thought that's going to work really well for this small performance I've got coming up, right? Because they originally those Bose L, it wasn't the L1, but the very original Bose column arrays were very similar to what they still have now, where it's just like a stick with a subwoofer that sits off to the side of it. And they were all marketed to acoustic musicians who didn't want to haul around a bunch of big speakers. And they actually sounded really good. They sound like, I crap on Bose a lot because I put out the actual SPL information and stuff on your stuff. Like cut it out. But Bose made a really good product that worked really well for a lot of acoustic musicians, and it was a really full sound. It was really light. And it sounded really good at lower volumes. So DJs started to use it, especially for like cocktail hour or small dances and stuff. But because it got more popular, they started making them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just, they're getting, in my opinion, getting out of control. I don't think anybody needs these like 18-inch subwoofered column arrays, but I could be proven wrong. I'm aiming to get some 12s. Like mine right now are little 10 10-inch in the bottom, work for small events. I may Yorkville, disclosure, I'm a dealer for Yorkville. They have some that have a 12-inch that have a pretty decent frequency range, and actually have their SPL numbers listed, and they can do just shy of 120 dB continuous, like program or however they call it, where like you can just run them at about 120 dB without an issue. That's intriguing to me. I'd probably only run them at 110 if I need something that's putting out 120 or higher decibels. I've got better speakers for that. But for what we're doing, or when I'm like my smaller event type stuff, but I want a bit more bass response. I want a bit more headroom, because that is a problem I run into with my smaller column arrays, is that if I really want to push them, they start farting out a little bit. But that's my rant. I don't know how much of that is of interest to people, but I think that's, like I said, I think that's why audio is such a weird thing when it comes to DJs. Is they're trying to reinvent the wheel because it's all about being unique. It's all about, you know, but like I said, other people have tried it. You're probably best to do it the way that everybody has done it before, because that's truth be told, it's often how these speakers are designed. The ones who are actually redoing how we do things are the ones who are building the speakers. Right? Like I said, these guys who develop the column arrays or the proper line arrays and that kind of thing, those ones are the ones reinventing the wheel. And then they design a product that is supposed to work a certain way, and you should use it that certain way, right? It's the same thing when I see people, they buy one one line array piece, and like there's a continuous array or something like that where it's kind of like the in-between hybrid, which they, you might be able to get away with that. I haven't tested those enough to know for sure, but to me it seems like unless you're going to actually stack a few of them together, you may as well just be using a regular point source. They're less expensive and built more for this situation. But that'd be a whole other rant, and my voice is starting to go, and I've got a lot more talking to do today because I've got a few meetings coming up. So hopefully this was useful for some people. Hopefully it wasn't too mean. I try not to be like I part of me considered calling this roasting bad DJ setups, which I might do something like that someday, or like a rate my rig type thing. So I know those are popular for a while. But all right, I'm gonna go.